Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you all. It's 7 p.m. and I'm going to call tonight's Board of Ed meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is approval of minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the December 10th, 2025 regular Board of Ed meeting minutes. Motion made by Mark, seconded by Brendan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the minutes, please indicate by raising their hand. Any opposed? Is it unanimous? Okay, great. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the special meeting minutes from that same evening, December 10th, 2025. Motion made by Katina. Seconded by Gary. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. And now we're on to public comment. Is there anybody in the auditorium or online who would like to speak during public comment? I don't see anybody in here, and I'm not hearing anybody speaking up online. So we'll move on. The board chair's report. Well, welcome to 2026. And thank you for people who came out tonight in the cold weather. Really appreciate it. The board is working with Dr. Gamero on her evaluation and the format and how we're going to be measuring success together. That's why we've been having a couple of special meetings to talk about that. And we've made great progress, and we'll continue to work on things with Dr. Gamero as we move forward through the year. I would like to see if the board is able to schedule a half-day retreat to check in the middle of the year on things, to work on our board self-evaluation and talk about maybe where we are on goals and things with Dr. Gamero. We were unsuccessful in getting a date in December or January for that. And I'm just going to put out there that I want the board, I'm not going to ask you all now, but I'm going to ask you one-on-one after tonight's meeting what your availability is. But at this point, Dr. Gamero and I were looking at February 21st, February 28th, and I'm pushing back to give a third date, March 7th. I think it would be helpful for us to get together and have a little mini retreat on a Saturday. So please take a look at your calendars and we'll see whether we can figure something out. I know it's difficult with people's work schedules and also with personal commitments. So that's all I have to report tonight. And we're on to the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few highlights and updates to share with the board and the public, and then we will be recognizing two of our schools this evening. First, I just wanted to share that we had a highly successful Three Kings Day celebration on January 9th. We had 269 families and 774 children who attended the event. We had some who had registered in advance and others who came and actually registered at the event. So as you can see, it was highly successful. We're very thankful to the staff who worked the event. We had 18 staff from family liaisons and the before and after school program who, as you can see, were doing a variety of things from giving out toys to actually cooking meals. And we had also some of our amazing music teachers who are always there for us and providing live music. We also had, and we're very proud of this, 20 Windham High School students who volunteered, as well as 6 Windham Prevention Coalition program students who volunteered as well. So it was really an amazing opportunity for us to engage with the community, and there were so many smiles, and we just had, it was a fun activities, and it was my first time experiencing this in Windham Public Schools, and so I was really thankful for everyone who made this successful, because it took a lot of prep beforehand and a lot of hands-on work on the day of the event and after the event to make it as successful as it was. So I'm thankful for everyone who participated.
Thank you.
I also wanted to give an update on our latest district-wide professional development, which took place on January 14th and is in alignment with our areas of focus for our school district. The name of the topic of the professional development was a look at school climate. The session was designed by our district school climate coordinator, Kimberly Beck. Thank you for your work that you've been doing in engaging with all of our school climate specialists from across the district. It was facilitated in each one of the schools, and every staff member was able to participate by the school climate specialist. And in some schools, it is the school principal. In other schools, it is members of the support staff. The learning supporting not only meeting statutory requirements related to school climate, but it also is helping us focus and aligning our thinking and practices across the district to strengthen school climate. And this professional learning will continue into the spring and will support our ongoing transformation in our schools. The next steps will include administering a school climate survey that will be taking place in the spring and is going to be administered to students, families, as well as staff. And the purpose of collecting the feedback is to assess our current improvement efforts, identify strengths and areas of growth, and guide future plans and activities related to culture and climate in our schools. And so we're really looking forward to hearing from the entire Windham community on this topic. So more information to come.
Does anybody have any questions? Comments? Okay. Just raise your hand as we move through these reports if there's something you want to ask about or talk about. Thank you, Dr. Gamero.
So now I want to move on to just recognizing again 2 of our schools this evening. I want to recognize the outstanding work happening at Charles H. Barrows STEM Academy. This slide highlights some recognition that they have received, and it reflects the strong instructional leadership, innovative STEM learning experiences, and continued commitment to student success happening every day at Barrows. The school principal, Mr. Evan Jones, is here with us this evening, and I've invited him to briefly share the work behind this recognition and what it means for students, staff, and families.
There we go. Look at that. It's great to be here tonight. I'm just coming from a open house at Barrows that was well attended. So that was really fun to see potential incoming families that are hoping to get in through our lottery. This is an incredible moment for the Barrows community. We have been ranked at number 81 best middle school out of nearly 600 schools in the state of Connecticut. This ranking, yeah. This ranking is based on our performance data from math and reading, and it really shows the commitment from Barrows families, students, and staff members to create a space where all can achieve. So that's very exciting for us. Another point of pride that I'd like to share is that we have been selected as an international Technology and Engineering Educators Association School of Excellence for 25-26. And basically, what that means is that we are being recognized for providing outstanding technology, engineering, and STEM learning experiences for our students. This special designation celebrates schools where innovation, rigorous instruction, and meaningful student opportunities are not occasional, but part of our everyday culture. And one kind of concrete thing that I think is fun to share is that as part of the group that reviewed our application said one thing that they were really especially excited about was some of the work that happened in kindergarten that was really visible with our youngest learners. After kindergarten, students visited a local skate park and they were investigating how objects change speed and they were studying motion and energy. So they went to a skate park to see it with their own eyes. And then they came back to the classroom and engineered their own skate parks and were able to explain how the design features that they had designed in their skate parks affected motion and energy. So that's Barrow STEM in action, hands-on, creative, and deeply connected to real-world learning. So thank you for that. As part of this honor, also, some of our staff members will go to Virginia Beach to the conference, the ITEA annual conference, and be recognized at the opening general session with a School of Excellence banner. And so we're really excited to recognize and celebrate Barrows on the national level.
That is really wonderful.
Yeah.
You get another hand for that. And does anybody in the board have any question? Gary?
Yeah, just two things. One, I substituted at your school like 2 years ago, and I will tell you that I was impressed with your students, with your staff, and with the administration and the entire school over there too. My question is, you talked about having an open house. How many applicants do you have, and how many openings do you have?
We had about we're keeping track, but we had about 100 visitors today, and I think typically there's about 600 to 700 applicants for each lottery cycle. Most of those were kindergarten, but we had kindergarten applicants, but we had applicants from across the grade levels.
And how many openings?
There's 66 in kindergarten, and then it sort of depends on each grade level. There's 66 slots total, and so it kind of depends on, who's moved out of town or who's, so there's at other grade levels, there's just a few openings typically. And I hope you'll come back and visit again. And I'd just like to remind everyone here, our invention convention is coming up, and we're always looking for judges, and no experience necessary. And you may even get lunch.
Thank you very much. Anybody, Katina?
I do want to see the kindergartners.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're still around, so come by anytime. You're always welcome.
For people who may not have heard what Katina said, she said she'd like to see the kindergartners skate park.
Yeah, super fun.
Anybody else? Well, congratulations, and please convey to the staff. I see a couple people came in from staff. Please convey to
And
the.
we have one of our amazing 8th grade students,
Oh,
Aurelia Luna, in
wonderful.
the back.
Nice to see you. So we have please convey to the rest of the staff and to the students our deep appreciation for the very meaningful and wonderful work that's going on.
Awesome.
at
Thank you so
Barrows.
much. We're going to keep bringing home the accolades.
Thank you. And I hope we get some press coverage on this. That's not on you, but I hope we can get some press coverage on this for the people should know about
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. On to,
Thank you, Principal Jones. And I know that this is not only due to your strong leadership, but it's collective effort from your team members as well. So thank you for those of you here today, our amazing students, but thank you and keep up the great work. Next, I want to highlight North Windham School as an example of what it looks like when our district priorities are brought to life in meaningful and practical ways at the school level. This slide, I'm just sharing, we're going to be sharing the purposeful work happening to strengthen the instruction at North Windham. So we have here with us today our school principal, Ms. Amy Majek, and she is going to be sharing with us an overview of the strategies that are being implemented at North Windham. Welcome.
Oh, good afternoon, good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Gamero, members of the audience. I'm Amy Majak, the principal at North Windham School. Emily Mallon, our assistant principal, wanted to be here, but her baby is ill, so she's online. So I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about a new initiative that we have at North Windham School and talk about how it started and the roots of it. It's called Iron Sharpens Iron. And as a leader in the building, I feel like I know that our priorities are to raise student achievement. And so for me, it's always come down to curriculum and instruction. So we have scores, but scores on a test are truly just a symptom of curriculum and instruction. And I believe that Windham Public Schools has wonderful curriculum, our math curriculum, our literacy curriculum, and we have wonderful instruction. I get to see in all the classrooms the instruction. I would like to be able to replicate some of the pockets of really great instruction. And because I'm in those rooms, to be able to say to teachers, oh my goodness, go see here, go see there. So what Iron Sharpens Iron is hoping to do is create a space for teachers to be able to go in and learn from teachers. Teachers are the experts. They're doing what they're doing all day. They're in third grade teaching math. They're doing the research for that. If you're a fourth grade literacy, you're doing literacy research. So they are the experts day to day. Emily and I can go in, the coaches can go in and see great things. But we really want to create an atmosphere, kind of like a teachings building where we're building teacher efficacy so they are comfortable and collaborative going into people's classrooms 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or asking people come into my classroom, take a peek. Am I standing at my desk too much? Am I not calling on boys and only calling on girls? What's happening? Or just start getting into each other's classrooms without me having to say it or facilitate it. So we do have paraprofessionals who can cover a class for 10 to 15 minutes. The students were given an activity, and teachers go into other classrooms, could be looking at a grade level. They could be going into a Dos Rios class, wanting to look for TPR, anything specific, or they're just looking at their anchor charts. But so the iron sharpens iron is really teachers are the best teachers. And so I feel like when they learn from each other, when I learn from, as a teacher, my best PD was talking to people, going into classrooms and seeing how it's done. So we're just trying to create this mechanism, the structure to have this in place and hope that it builds on. The protocols for this year was each teacher is required or expected to go into 2 classrooms from August to December, and then 2 classrooms the rest of the year. Our mid-year goals, we will be talking about anything that they've learned or, things that they've gleaned. And then hopefully we're going to bring it next year where it would be even more visits, and then maybe create some look-fors, like, something more for them to decide, not just going in and visiting, looking around, that there'd be specific things. But I think this year we're just trying to create that atmosphere and structure for people to go in. I don't even know when they're doing it necessarily. Unless they can reach out to me if they haven't gotten coverage, I can provide the coverage, but they're doing it on their own. So a few people, I have, have come, and just, we're just going to let us know how things are working and their opinions of stuff.
Is it on? Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Emily Kelly. This is my 20th year teaching in Windham. It's been a while. And thank you for having me. I've had a couple of the students, I had Brendan's 3 children in my class. This year I joined the kindergarten team at North Windham School. I had previously been teaching kindergarten at Windham Center School, but of course it did close last year. When Ms. Majak and Mrs. Mallon suggested that we visit other teachers' classrooms in an iron sharpened iron model, I was somewhat familiar with it, as I had done some classroom visits at Windham Center as well. This year was different for me, though. I felt that visiting other classrooms at North Windham would give me both the opportunity to see how other teachers taught and their strategies, maybe some of their anchor charts, and it also gave me the opportunity, though, to get to know teachers that I didn't know, because I was going into a building, there was maybe about 5 people who came from Windham Center that went over there. So there were a lot of teachers I hadn't known. So I was able to go and do that and see their teaching styles as well. So far this year, I was able to visit Karen O'Hearn's first grade classroom during a language arts block. I was able to observe students working on writing using text evidence from an informational text. During the lesson, I was able to see that the students were given a choice of graphic organizers to use. Students were discussing the main idea of the text and the supporting details. I also observed the students using the text to support their writing. I felt this observation was beneficial to me in that I was able to see the differences in expectations for the for the first grade students. I have known that in the ARC program during first grade, students begin to respond more deeply to text that they have read. They begin to understand main ideas and details, and they begin to organize their facts from the informational text. In kindergarten, we are currently working on informational text about different ecosystems. After visiting the first grade classroom, I would like to integrate some of the strategies that I saw into my lessons, maybe more of the graphic organizers that I've seen. Kindergarten doesn't really do a lot. Well, we do graphic organizers, but I do a lot of it in whole group. So I'd like to, do some of that main idea as well. After visiting the first grade classroom, as I said, I would like to integrate some of those strategies. I feel that my students would benefit by being exposed to the main ideas and details through modeling with me in kindergarten. The informational text that we are reading would lend nicely to working on this skill with my students. Being able to visit another classroom let me observe student work and allowed me to see what I can do in my classroom to support my students as they get ready for first grade. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Yasmin Gonzalez. This is my 8th year of teaching, and I'm actually very proud of always saying this. I am a graduate from Windham. This is also my first year at North Windham School, and that's also the elementary school that I went to, so I loved going back there. So when I heard that my school was participating in the Iron Sharpens Iron initiative, at first I felt a little nervous, not only because it was my first year, but because usually teachers are anxious and vulnerable about, other teachers observing the classrooms. However, the experience at North Windham and the experience of doing the Iron Sharpens Iron initiative has been very inspiring and showed me and taught me about the power of learning from each other. It can be safe and powerful. So that was good. Also, at the time when Ms. Majak introduced that, I was reading an article that told that I had just read an article for school that showed that in many schools, teachers actually do not talk about openly about their teaching practice or about the strategies that they use and why they use them. Like teachers are talking about other things, but not specifically about their teaching. So I was excited to get those conversations started at North Windham, but I'm not saying that wasn't happening there. I'm just saying that I had just read that article. So I was excited. Um, this year I've served several teachers, but two teachers that stood out to me when I was in those classrooms were a second grade teacher and a third grade teacher. And it was related to teaching academic language. And that's related to my growth goal, which is teaching academic language to my students, obviously, and then having them talk about it so they can learn about it, and having them during turn talks and um, classroom activities or things like that. So seeing other teachers do it was very insightful. In a math lesson, one teacher noticed that students were struggling to pronounce a multisyllabic word, and it was a math lesson, and so she stopped teaching, and then she enunciated the word syllable by syllable, and then she had students repeat the word a couple of the times, and then she had the students use the turn and talk, which again, it's something that I do, but seeing different approaches helps me be better at my own practice. So I really liked seeing those like little things that teachers do, and it really, when I did it, it actually worked, and I loved doing it, especially with my English multilingual learners, which is because I teach those Rio, so they really need that specific instruction. And then another teacher that also did an excellent job teaching was a second grade teacher. She was teaching a math word problem, and she guided students through underlying the specific keyword that helped her. She modeled how to solve the problem, and then she modeled how those specific academic words helped her solve the problem. So she actually did it with the kids. And again, something that I do, but seeing better ways to do it and the tools that teachers are using to do it is what I'm really gaining of like going to these classrooms. So through this classroom visit, I think I've not only gained, instructional strategies and things like that, but I also saw a lot of things that maybe I did in the past and helped me remember like behavioral strategies or quick checks for understanding some things that sometimes I forget because I've been teaching for so long now, or other ways to increase student engagement. So I think that's really powerful. And most importantly, observing other teachers this year has helped me understand that learning from one another can be very safe and very powerful. And it helps me grow professionally. And the last thing that I want to say is that I think part of it is because I respect a lot of the teachers at North Windham School. They've been very welcoming and very, understanding. Scheduling has never been an issue. So I think that's part of why this has been amazing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica McCormick, and I have been a third grade teacher for the last 4 years at North Wyndham. Before that, I was a first grade teacher at North Wyndham for 6. So I've been here in Wyndham Public Schools for over 10 years. But as a third grade teacher, I would like to share something that has made a meaningful difference in my teaching. The idea that iron sharpens iron. When teachers are given opportunities to step into another classroom, we grow stronger together. Visiting fellow teachers' classrooms is low stress and informal. There is no pressure, just learning going on. These visits allow us to see effective strategies in action, gather new ideas, and reflect on our own practices in a meaningful way. Now, since I had to move from first grade to third grade, I feel like I needed a nice push and example of how to teach to the upper elementary. So I recently had the opportunity to go and visit a fourth grade classroom, and I felt like it was incredibly valuable. I observed a teacher front-loading vocabulary for an upcoming literacy unit in a clear and engaging way that immediately stood out. She intentionally prepared students for the success before beginning the novel. I also saw how she used Google Classroom to have students complete an assignment focused on making predictions based on the novel's cover. The activity was purposeful, student-centered, and easy to adapt to my third grade classroom since we are slowly trying to integrate Google Classroom into third grade to prepare them for fourth. And I knew that I could implement some of the things I saw in her classroom right away to mine, and they were quick, easy changes. But most importantly, this type of collaboration builds trust and fosters a positive school culture. When teachers learn from other teachers, everyone benefits, especially our students. Encouraging peer observation supports professional growth while honoring the expertise that we already have in our amazing buildings. Now, going forward, though, I do believe it would be incredibly valuable to take the idea of iron sharpens iron into a step further by providing opportunities for teachers to visit classrooms, not only within their own schools, but also across the district, because some teachers don't have the ability like North Windham, where we have multiple classrooms at grade levels to go see. And it'd be nice to see how other classrooms in the district are doing things, and expanding this collaboration will allow us to learn from a wider range of practices, strengthen instructional consistency, and continue to grow together as a district. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chiara Cotino, one of the coaches at North Windham School, and you've heard such wonderful things, and it is true. This is my 4th year here. And as a coach, I get to be in classrooms a lot and see really great things happening. So I'm very grateful that our principals have taken this initiative to allow teachers to go into other classrooms and see all this great learning taking place, and then have the opportunity to come back and collaborate with me as a coach, or, you know, to have discussions at our PLCs. We had an opportunity to have a vertical PD one day, and that was really insightful to hear all of that being exchanged. So I just want to reiterate what all these wonderful teachers said, and that it's just been a great structure for us this year. And I'm just grateful that there's a strong foundation of trust among our staff, and people are taking these opportunities to visit and come away with wonderful things. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, Mary, or comments?
Yeah, that was very
Me or
interesting.
any of them, doesn't have to be just.
It's just a more general comment, that it's something I really enjoyed hearing. I love to hear what's going on in the classrooms. And of course, I think teaching is the best profession. It is very meaningful and is essential in our society. I I think this idea is really empowering, and I am just wondering if, in some way, it can be synced in with professional development in a way, or the teachers could have some sort of credit, because I know there are a lot of burdens placed on teachers, and sometimes lots of things that are supposed to occur outside of the classroom. But is there some way? I don't know. It's almost like you could gain credits or points or something for doing this. And I would just like to reward the teachers or in some way.
There's always chocolate on my desk. I've got five baskets of chocolate. They can always come and get that. One thing that I think it was just said that I didn't think of too, when I was teaching and I would go to a PD like offsite at EastCon or something, and it would be for math typically, and you couldn't wait to get back into your classroom and just try it. And it just, or you, like Yasmin said, there's some, you were, oh gosh, I used to do that. And it just really jars your memory and you can bring it right back. It's like, just adds a little more spice and refreshment. Yeah. I don't know about credits though, so that would be Dr. Guerrero. Day off.
Thank you, Mary. Katina.
Well, North Wyndham is my school, so yeah, so I'm prejudiced for you. Okay, no, but I wanted to say that it's a wonderful opportunity to build trust within the school, right? And that is what helps also the students. It just, trickles down to the students on trusting each other and trusting their growth and maybe collaborating with other grades. And with that type of environment, nothing but growth can happen. So thank you for what you're doing.
And another thing like about trust, a traditional coaching model, an administrator might tell a teacher, I'd like you to reach out to one of the coaches, and part of what the coaching might what come from that would be go and observe some classrooms, which might have a stigma to it, Now that everybody's doing it, it just, I think, takes that away.
Mark?
Thank you. I certainly join the rest of the board in congratulating these two schools. And I also, in a selfish self-plug, would point out that both of these schools will be appearing on Windham Weekly radio show. Northwood will be there tomorrow. Burrows will be there on the 29th. And those of you who can't listen to the show from 4 to 5, all of our shows are archived on YouTube under the WILI radio, so you can go back and see the other schools. We've had, in this past month, we've had all the schools. We've had Sweeney, we've had Windham High School, we've had Windham Middle School, and we've had Natchog, all talking about their various, we had Natchog kids who were doing the choir, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Northwood was going to bring with them to surprise us.
We have a lot of.
We are trying to get the word out there.
Only.
We're trying hard, Lynn, to get the word out there to the public of the good things that happen here in Windham. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Paula?
I was very happy to hear what was going on. I remember when we were looking at, unfortunately, school closures and trying to decide how to arrange the district. I remember the one comment that we heard most consistently was that teachers wish to have the time and opportunity to visit, especially other teachers of their own grade level, whether that be within their school or in schools across the district. So you're starting it, and I think it's wonderful. Congratulations. And congratulations to Barrow. Certainly always excited to hear what's going on there too.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to say anything? Again, please convey to the rest of the staff at North Windham that we're really proud of this initiative that you're taking and look forward to hearing more as it unfolds over the years to come. So
I just wanted to thank you for creating the conditions for staff to feel safe and going into each other's classrooms and learn from one another. I was also happy to hear that it's also in alignment with your learning goals, because this is not something in addition to, right? This is what we do. This is what we should be talking about, teaching and learning and creating the conditions for them to be able to do it in a way that is less stressful. I think it's impactful. So thank you all for coming and sharing your stories with us and for the work that you're doing. So thank you.
thank you. Now, we're going to move on to other board business, and I want to make sure that the staff from Barrows and North Windham don't feel that they have to stay here for the full meeting. If you need to get on the road, please feel free to do so. Okay? You're welcome to stay with us the whole time, though, if you want to. Oh, okay. So you can go eat dinner then. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to you, Katina, to give us the policy committee report.
As usual, thank you to the staff for preparing and getting us ready to review the policies. We met January 7th. I think we were one of the first committees that met this year. And you will have in our agenda what we're recommending. And there are some repeal and replace with the model policies that we have had. I don't know why this is making so background noise. Okay. So some have to do with library materials, and also evaluation and termination of non-renewal of athletic coaches. We also recommend to hold for next month's discussion one of those two that I just mentioned, which is the library materials and administrative regulations, and recommended for legal review the certified 50 fees Carvo policy, as well as other two other policies that you have. So thank you again, and we are going to vote on those policies tonight. So I'm looking for your approval. Is there anything else I should say or review? Any other committee meetings, members? Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Catherine? You need to press.
I do have a question about just the wording of the employment of an athletic coach. And so it says, I'm just confused about the wording. And so it says that they can be terminated at any time in that section A, but then in section B, it says they have to be informed within 90 calendar days. So to me, it conflicts. I'm not sure why in one section it says at any time, but in another section it says within 90 days.
Ask Neil to clarify that.
Okay.
Please.
So you're saying in the first section, sorry, my new computer is not cooperating with me. So of course, can you just read the first section?
Okay, so section A says, and their employment in their specific coaching positions may be non-renewed or terminated at any time, blah, blah, blah. And then in section B, it says, any coach who has served 3 or more consecutive school years, the superintendent shall inform such coach of the decision within 90 calendar days of the end of the athletic season covered by the contract. So to me, the way I'm understanding it, it's when you put in the 90 days, it's not at any time.
So the only distinction possibly, they're talking about non-renewal versus termination.
Okay, maybe that's it.
Non-renewal just means
Or terminated, okay.
Yeah.
But I think they're both, so terminates or non-renews. I see that in section B, and I see non-renewed or terminated also in section A. So just kind of, it just seems like it's
Yeah.
contradicting a little bit.
We
So-
also are replacing it with the model policy
Mhm.
that our lawyers provided, which is in the series of personnel policy evaluation, termination of non-renewal of athletic coaches. So
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm just taking a quick look at this, and it looks like section B adds the additional protection for coaches who have coached 3 or more consecutive school years.
Okay.
okay,
All right,
that's
so that's the
that's
difference.
difference.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't do anything, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. Anybody else have any questions for Katina? Okay, we're going to move on to the next committee report, school planning and design. Brendan.
Thank you. We also met back on January 7th. We received a facilities update from Mr. Harris. The district has been, facilities department has been full swing in dealing with all of the winter weather, snow removal, ice removal, and of course, keeping our classrooms nice and toasty, which in these aging buildings has proved to be somewhat of a challenge. But they are keeping up with it. We had some discussion of some of the work that's going to need to be done in the coming months and years to be able to keep the buildings warm. We had some discussion over some other projects, some smaller projects that were done at some of the other schools, some discussion over the lightning strike that was here at the high school and the work that was done to remediate that. We had some discussion of facilities use in the winter at the high school, specifically about whether or not it may be feasible to use the turf field over the winter. After that, we reviewed again the solar projects that we're working with the town on at some of our schools that are currently in review. And then we had a discussion of some of the upcoming capital, again, most of that having to do with keeping our schools heated, since that is most of our urgent need at the moment, as well as a discussion about needing more regular reporting from the town as to our available capital improvement funds. That sums it up.
Thank you, Brendan. Is there any discussion? Mary?
I can't remember. I might have been either late or I had a problem getting on a meeting at some point, but is the Natchog project for improving the heat, is that for next year or is that something happening now?
That would be for next year.
Yeah, we don't have the money for that this year. And
Correct.
that was not requested for the capital improvements for this year that were approved by the voters.
Yeah, although sometimes we can move money as long as it's within the capital improvements. I wanted to add that, you know, I have talked to some people since the election, and I'm just thinking in terms of the elementary schools that, you know, it might be helpful if we have a special meeting or two, and we also invite WFT to nominate 2 teachers or have some volunteers and some parent volunteers, because I really think that that was a big lack in preparing for the consolidated elementary school project. And I mean, there would be a very large hole in the neighborhood where Natchog is, for example, if that school is no longer there. And that is something that concerns a lot of people. And I do think that we have not reviewed our the consolidation effort, but certainly the lack of teacher, staff, and parent input from the beginning was a problem. And I do think that we need to be mindful and respectful and think that even a beautiful school is only going to be as good as its, you know, happy students and staff. And perhaps there are some reasons to not devastate neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mary. To your point, which you're referring to the concept of school consolidation and whether or not we revisit that at the meeting that we had to wrap up the ad hoc committee's work, we did have some conversation about moving forward or not on elementary school consolidation. And at that meeting, as we reported, we've decided to wait until we get through the spring and the budget process before we have a full-blown discussion about whether or not we revisit this idea and how we change the way in which we approach it, if we decide to revisit, or who we want to and how we want to have that conversation. So yes, this is on the school board's shoulders to figure out how to move forward. And if we do, and, but that will come at a later date. We did ask school planning and design to work with Albie Harris on what the sort of master plan of school capital needs are. And I will say to the Board of Ed members, they may or may not be aware of the fact that last week, the town bodies met to talk about capital improvement plan for the next couple of years. And at the Board of Finance meeting last week, we got a copy of their, I don't know how long the plan, it's huge. There are all sorts of things, but the schools were not included in that discussion. And so we need to figure out with some leadership from school planning and design, and this board needs to figure out how we want to insert ourselves into the conversation. Certainly the issue of boilers for Kramer is a big issue that we'll have to deal with. And we'll have to figure out how we get our, um, our projects funded. There was quite an in-depth conversation at the Board of Finance meeting last week about limiting our bonding. And so I think this is going to set us up for some real work on our part. Gary, and then Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that at the meeting, we were going to put the impetus for the beginning that discussion at School Planning and Design Committee, as you had said.
Mark?
Thank you, Lynn. In my undesignated role as board historian, I did want to point out that it has always been tradition that the town developed their capital improvement plan and the Board of Ed developed their capital improvement plan. And then there was a capital improvement plan committee, which was made up of town, Board of Ed, and Public Works and engineers, who then prioritize, because we all have needs, but you can't do $10 million worth of needs. And so the idea of this joint committee, which hopefully we might get back to, was to prioritize the projects. You know, should the natural roof come before the walking trail at the NASCAR property and vice versa. So that's always been the tradition. We just got away from it at some point and haven't coordinated the two together.
Mark, yes, and Mark and I both served on one of those committees together when we were on different boards than we're on right now. But I'm afraid that there's some work we need to do to insert ourselves into this process. But we're getting off track. There's just a lot for us to be working on this year. Now on to finance and audit. Mark?
Yes, thank you. We met last Wednesday. They had a public comment from one of our citizens who was concerned about the capital bonding project. She read her statement into our minutes, and she has it on file at the clerk's office if anyone's interested. That's all being handled at the town level. Reviewed the budget transfers, which is where we're going to, the committee has recommended approving $16,232 of budget transfers. And that, if you look in your packet, is under action item number 9. Ray has detailed the 3 different places that's going to happen. Zach Konopka, the high school athletic director, came to us and discussed a possible football co-op with Coventry High School, Parish High School, and Bolton High School, and how that might work. It would be a 2-year agreement, subject to, of course, our approval, and then final approval by the CICA. And Lynn had requested that Zach put this in a writing outline to present to the board for the board approval. So we'll, I think at the next meeting, Iris, will we see that?
I believe so,
Okay.
yes.
I won't hold you that.
Well, I know that he needs additional information, so if it's not, he will definitely be bringing it
When
to the
it's
board.
ready.
Yes, when it's
Yeah.
ready.
So when it's ready, it'll come to there'll be a written proposal come to the full board. We reviewed there were some corrected dates on the calendar for the budget approval, and that, as you see, is also on action item C for approval tonight. Ray presented the year-to-date budget, and we're moving closer to getting in balance, but there's still questions about final grant monies, distribution, like the ECS grant money, and especially the special ed excess cost grant. And we've been, we've been asked that they stay in close contact with our state reps, because there's some concern that we not get as much as we need under that cost grant. And then finally, Mary asked for clarification of the Board of Finance to allow us to underfund the 161,000 workers' comp. And Ray said he has gotten confirmation, but he'll stay in touch with the town folks regarding this. And that was it, I believe.
Any comments? Ray, you need to come up to the mic if you want to say. This is Mr. Ray Dolphin.
Good
speaking.
evening, I'm Ray Dolphin. There wasn't a full board meeting. We've had two finance and audit meetings prior to this, and I don't know if we have the larger bundle of transfers were officially approved. I just want to make sure that those get approved by the board because we have to put those through.
You're saying from the December meeting?
That's correct. So the December
finance and
meeting, we had a
audit, there-
significantly large number of
What-
transfers.
Well, you need to tell us what they are if you want us to consider them this evening.
Okay. Yeah, they were.
Do you have
put
them
in the
handy? Because
packet.
they're not in.
Is it the
packet.
161?
Yes.
Like,
That's one of the ones.
what would
with the
be
161.
previous
Mm-hmm.
on this
Yeah,
running list? But they
Um,
haven't been approved?
we can move it. We can move it
Thank
to the
you.
back end. Len, we
Thank
can
you,
move it.
Mary.
I'm sorry.
The 1217 total was $573,604.
There we
That's
go.
on your page 505 of the transfers.
Perfect.
You'll see it's
Yes.
grand total Board of Ed 121725. I thought we'd approved that, but I'm sorry if we missed it, so.
I just want to make
No,
sure.
well, we haven't
might
had a
have
Board
approved
of
it,
Ed
but-
meeting since then, so
We're looking
thank
for
you for.
approval. So tonight, we're looking for approval of
Yeah.
$573,604.06 and $16,232.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Whoever's got the laptop open to do some quick math there.
Yeah, we need the.
Yes, I'm
total.
looking at you, Brendan. Or unless you want to do it as two separate, Len?
Well, we can get to that when we get to action items, but the board, you're saying that the Finance and Audit Committee is making recommendations from its December meeting and its January meeting for two different transfers that were recommended, but we can take action on them together or separately. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any questions from Mark? Yes?
Mark, just a clarification on,
That's under discussion on another item around the budget calendar. Is that what you're looking at,
yeah,
Gary?
can I ask a question to him on the budget calendar?
No, that's next on the agenda. I mean, later on the agenda.
That did come through the Finance Committee.
But we didn't make a decision.
Okay.
We're asking the board tonight to make a decision on the date. So can you wait until we get to discussion items, Gary, to ask a
Yeah.
question about that?
I don't really have a discussion about it. I'm just looking for a clarification, that's all. I don't know if you want to do it now or later.
But we can do it under that item on discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else on finance and audit? Thank you. Okay, so now we have asked our pension plan consultant to be present. Is she or he here?
Yes,
Elena
hello.
Pelletier?
Yes, I'm here virtually. I'm not sure if you can see
Right, we
me
can
on the.
see you and we can
Okay.
see the screen. I just wanted to make sure you were here and we've asked our consultants at Milliman to give us some information about pension plan options, which for the newer members of the board, it is our responsibility as board members to make decisions about these things. And we decided that we wanted to have the full board presented with this issue this evening. So I'm going to hand it over to you, unless anybody on central office staff needs to give us any other information before she starts. Okay, you're on.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elena Pelletier from Milliman. We are the plans actuaries, and we have been the pension plans actuaries for several decades. I looked that up to see the history. And like you just said, our job is to help you manage this pension plan and make sure that you're setting aside funds for these benefits in a prudent manner. And what we do is we perform a valuation of the pension plan as of July 1, every July 1. And what that means is we get updated census data for the members. We get updated asset information. We combine that with the plan's provisions and our assumptions about the future. Things like what kind of salary increases do we expect? When do we expect members to retire? What do we expect the plan's assets to earn in the future? So we do, all of our actuarial work with those assumptions, and we calculate a liability for the plan. Next, we take the assets into account and we calculate what we call an actuarially determined contribution. So that is our recommendation for what you should contribute to the plan in order to have enough funds to pay benefits, but also minimize volatility from year to year. So those are two of our main goals when calculating the contribution. So today I'm going to go over each of those inputs kind of one by one. I know it's getting late. I'm going to try not to bore you with too many numbers. There are, pictures in my presentation, and I'm really here to help you understand the financial dynamics of the plan. So feel free to stop me and ask questions at any time. And before we go to the next slide, if you really forget most of what I said, I want to give you the key takeaways as far as the results of this year's valuation. And those key takeaways are that the assets had a good year. They returned close to 13% for the 24-25 fiscal year. That resulted in the plan's funded ratio increasing nicely from about 85% to close to 92%. And really, that's a result of those asset gains as well as some good experience on the census side. So I'll talk more about that later. But overall, I would call this kind of a nice, quiet year with good news to deliver, which I like. So if we go on to the next page. Just give me 1 second on my end. All right, so as I mentioned, the first input into our evaluation is information on the plan members. So what you're seeing in the top left corner is a graph that shows the member counts as of this most recent valuation date and the 4 previous years. And we break down the members into 3 groups. On the bottom in that dark blue are active employees. And just a reminder, this plan covers non-certified staff. So teachers and other certified staff do not participate in this plan. So as of July 1, 2025, there were about 97 active members, and that figure has been fairly steady over the last 5 years. It goes up a little, goes down a little, but it's fairly steady. The next class of members that we have are members in pay status. These are retirees that are collecting a pension, and there's 108 of them as of July 1, 2025. And lastly, we have a category of terminated members. These are folks that worked for the the school system. They have terminated employment. They have a benefit due, but they have not retired. They haven't started collecting it yet. And there's 70 members in that group. Just to give you an idea of what happened to the population over the last year, you had 13 members that terminated employment and some of those retired. You had 17 new members come in, and you had 9 retiree deaths. And we'll talk about how those changes impacted the liabilities a little later. The rest of this page just goes into some more details on each of those classes of members. The chart in the bottom left, sometimes I find insightful when you're looking at your active membership by age and service. And kind of the dark coloring shows you where the larger buckets of members are. And just to give you a sense, your plan's normal retirement criteria is age 65. So you can see you have 9 members there, and then another 19 that are close to reaching that threshold in the 60 to 64 bucket. So this just might be useful information about the makeup of the population. As far as members in pay status, just give you a quick highlight on the prior page. Just want to point out that your retirees are collecting close to $800,000 in annual benefits. So I just find that that's a good reminder because, that's why we're all here, to make sure that this plan continues to pay those benefits. All right, now we can go to the next page. Are there any questions on that? Any questions? No? Okay. So that was the member side of the equation. Now let's look at the assets. So, of course, investments, are volatile. You could have a good year, you can have a bad year. Fortunately, like I said, 24-25 was a good year with a return close to 13%. Now, our assumption for what we expect the plan's assets to return is 6.25. So that's our benchmark. When we're looking at the actual return, we're comparing it to what we assume, which is 6.25. So last year was a strong year. The previous 2 years were also strong years. The year before that was a bad year, and 5 years ago was a great year. And that's the market. Good years and bad years, like I said. One of the things that we do as part of our actuarial calculations is we smooth in those ups and downs. We don't want that volatility in the markets to translate to the same level of volatility in your contributions. Because I know you have a budget and you don't want it to jump up and down from one year to the next. So this is something standard that we do. We calculate an actuarial value of assets, which recognizes those gains or losses over 5 years. So that means, the good years and the bad years are not reflected right away. So, these good years that you've had these last 3 years, there's still gains left to recognize. So we'll see that reflected over the next few valuation cycles. Sorry. So on the bottom, you can see how the asset values have moved in the last 5 years. You can see the market value. You can see that little dip in 2022, and then it's been increasing nicely. In the actuarial value of assets, that smooth figure is more level. It's just been going up kind of slowly over time. Any questions on that?
No.
No. Okay, great. Then let's go on to the next page. All right, and another busy page. So we have our assets, we have our member information. Now we combine it with our assumptions. And one of the most important assumptions that we use is that expected return on the plan's assets. Like I just mentioned, we assume that the assets will return 6.25%. We like to assess that assumption every year. And the way we assess that assumption is we look at the target asset allocation of the fund. And that is what that top picture with the bubbles is showing. Each bubble represents an asset class that the assets are invested in. The blues are various equity categories, and the green is bonds. So, big picture, what this is telling you is you have a diversified portfolio. You have assets invested in some risky assets. You have assets invested in less risky assets. And what we do is we take that mix, we combine it with our capital market assumptions. So what do we expect each of those assets to return in the long term? And we're looking at, a 20, 30-year horizon. We're not looking at just what we expect in the next couple of years, because this pension plan is going to be paying benefits for decades. And when we do that analysis, we get the graph at the bottom. So over, 5, 10 years, you might have a lot of bad years. You might have more good years than bad years. But again, in the long term, things average out, and we expect this plan to return about 6.6% in the long term. Now, that is an analysis as of one point in time. That is our expectation as of June 30th, 2025. That's, a tad higher than your 6.25% discount rate, but we're comfortable with the 6.25% assumption. We don't think it's a good idea to change that assumption every year because you'd be essentially moving that bar, what your goal is for the asset return. And we don't want to put too much weight into 1 year's analysis. If we see over time that this analysis keeps returning values that, let's say, are closer to high sixes or seven, then maybe in the future we would recommend increasing that interest rate. But you might recall you've worked hard to lower that interest rate over time. So we don't want to undo that progress just based on 1 year's analysis. Does that make sense?
I don't see people who have any questions at this point, Elena, so I think you
Okay,
can keep
good.
going.
Yes, I know you're small on the screen, so I can't see facial expressions to see if folks are following. So let me know if there's confusion. But hearing none, we will move on to the next page. All right. So now we kind of put things together where we look at what was our liability and we compare that to the assets. So the top orange graph that shows you the liability and the historical numbers for that. So you can see that the liability has been growing over the last few years, and we expect that to happen as members earn more benefits, as you have new hires come into the plan, we expect that the liabilities continue to grow. Now, this most recent year, it actually dipped down slightly, and that was due to two reasons. One was that the activity on the member side that I mentioned. You did have more deaths than our assumption expected. I mentioned the nine retiree deaths. And there was a number of retirements and terminations that the retirements were early retirements. So again, that caused the liability to be lower than we would have expected based on our assumptions. And that's okay. Our assumptions, we do our best to predict what's going to happen in the future. Of course, we don't get it 100% right. That's why we do the annual valuation to reflect the actual experience. And this year just happens to be a year where the liabilities are lower than we would have expected. On the right-hand side, we break down the liability by status. And I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you the second reason why the liability is lower. And that is because we're suggesting a change to the other key assumption that we use, which is our mortality assumption. And that assumption is important because these are benefits that are paid as an annuity from members' lifetime. So the longer we would expect members to live, the higher the liability. We use mortality tables that are industry-wide tables that are released by the Society of Actuaries. And a number of years ago, they did a study based specifically on public plan mortality. And that is the table that we were using for your assumption. They recently updated that study. So they reflected another 6 years of experience and released the Pub 2016 table. No, actuaries aren't very creative with the table names. So we are recommending that you switch to that latest mortality table. It actually lowered the liabilities slightly. So not a big impact and actually a savings to the plan. So that's the other reason for the decrease in liability. So now moving on to the liability by member group, you can see the majority of the liability is for members in pay status. There's more of them. They're closer to collecting the benefits, so they have a large chunk of the liability. And then the active members have the next biggest chunk. When we compare the liability to the assets, which is an important measure, we want to know, do we have enough assets to cover this liability, or how short are we? That's what the bottom of the page is showing. On the left, we have the difference between the assets and liabilities, and you can see that that has dropped significantly. because you had good asset returns on one side and lower liabilities on the other side. So both of those things kind of worked in your favor and ended up with an unfunded liability of 1.2 million. And another way to to compare the liability and the assets is to take the ratio of those two figures. And that is usually an important indicator that people like to look at, the funded ratio, and that is at 91.9%. Any questions there?
I don't see any yet.
Okay, good. All right, so then we can go on the next page. So this is the last step in our valuation process. So we have an unfunded liability, we have members accruing more benefits. We need to come up with a way to fund that. So we calculate the actual determined contribution, like I mentioned. And that is made up of two main pieces. The first piece we call the normal cost. That's the dark green on the graph, and that makes up the majority of the contribution. That is the value of benefits accruing during the year. So as your active members work another year, they accrue another year of service. Therefore, there's a value to those benefits. So we want to fund those right away as they're being accrued. So that's the normal cost. The second piece we call the past service cost, and that is a payment towards that unfunded liability. So we have that shortfall of 1.2 million. We want to pay that off over time, and that is the past service cost. And there's different ways to fund that unfunded liability. Similar to taking out a loan, you could structure it differently. You could pay it off over 10 years. You could pay it off over 20 years. And I'm going to talk on the next slide about a change we're suggesting to how you structure that past service cost. But for now, we can just see that it comes out to about 120,000. Then we have a small interest adjustment that we make, and that is just because we're doing our valuation as of July 1, 2025, but we're calculating a contribution that you're going to make the following fiscal year. So we just adjust for that timing difference by adding a small interest amount. So when we put those three pieces together, we get a contribution of 543,000, which is a bit lower than it was the prior fiscal year. Any questions?
I think people are waiting to hear what your recommendation is.
Okay, beautiful.
Well,
Let's go to the next page then. Because this is where they are. This is the page with all the numbers and the details on the recommendations. So the first one I already mentioned, that was the mortality table. So that is the update from the Pub 2010 to the Pub 2016 table. And you can see on the top line that decreased the liability by a little over 100,000. And on the bottom line, you can see how that impacted the contribution, a small decrease there. So that's the first part of the change that we're suggesting. The second part is a little more complicated. It doesn't affect the liability. The liability is the same, but it's just how are we paying off that unfunded accrued liability? So your current method is similar to a standard mortgage where you're paying it off over a number of years, and the number of years that is left decreases every year. So as of 2024, you were amortizing that unfunded liability over 15 years. Then if you kept with that same method, that number would go down by 1, and you'd have 14 years left on the amortization. Now, there's nothing wrong with that method, but you're never planning to let that amortization period get down to 1 or even a small number, because if you think about it, that unfunded liability changes from year to year, right? You have gains or losses on both the liability side and the asset side. Let's say you had a bad year on the assets, all of a sudden the unfunded liability would increase, and then you'd have to pay that off over a short period. If you let that amortization period get down to, 5, 6 years, you wouldn't want that volatility in your contribution where you're paying off any unexpected changes over a short period. So whenever you have this closed amortization period, it's kind of intended to let it get to some minimum number and then make a switch to what we call a layered amortization method. Now, what that means is this current unfunded amount that you had as of last year, you keep paying that off according to its schedule. So on that amount, you would have 14 years left this year, 13 next year, and so on. You would keep paying that off until it got to zero. But any new gains or losses that you had, you would set up a new payment plan for it. So you would have a new amortization base, a new little slice that you would also be paying off over 15 years. So every year you would set up a new base that would be paid off over 15 years. And we recommend 15 because it's kind of a sweet spot of not too long, not too short. You want to pay off these unfunded amounts over the working lifetime of your employees, but you don't want that amount to be too short again, because that leads to volatility in the contribution. So that is what that last column is doing. It's calculating the contribution using this layered amortization base approach. And you can see that actually increases the contribution slightly because, again, the goal isn't to decrease the contribution, it's to make it less volatile. I know that was a lot of actuarial talk, so that
So you're recommending, Milliman is recommending that the board consider moving to a layered amortization model
exactly, yes.
rather than keeping
At the
um,
current closed amortization.
closed model.
Correct.
And the difference in cost is not that much. It's 542.
That's right.
645
it's about
versus
$5,000
537.
extra.
Yeah, about $5,000. And it does not impact our employees in any negative way. It still makes sure that they're whole. I mean, as a board member, that's what I'm
Yes,
thinking.
no, you're doing a good summary. Yes, it still makes sure that you are funding this plan towards 100% funded. That's still the goal, and that's still what this is going to achieve over time. At the same time, it's also protecting the board against volatility in the contribution.
Okay, are there other board members who have questions or comments on that? We do have on the agenda tonight possible action in the event that people feel prepared to take action on this recommendation this evening, but we don't have to take action this evening. I just want to open it up to discussion or questions. Katina?
So do I understand correctly that the layered model is not only doing the payment for the 2.1, I think it is, million dollars that we owe, but also adding another payment for any other accrued debt that we might have? Is that what the layered is? It's like two payments?
So the layer is so every year we calculate the unfunded accrued liability. And we have what we expect that number to be next year. But of course, there's, changes to the assets and liabilities from one valuation to the next. So we get gains or losses. we get, let's say, a higher asset value. So that means it's a gain. So we look at just the difference between what we expected and what actually happened, and that's what the new layer is. So for example, as of this valuation, the unfunded liability is 1.2 million. Now, I don't have the actual number in front of me, but let's say we expected that number to be 1.4 million, but it came out to be actually 1.2. So we would take that difference, that 200,000, and that would be the portion that made up the new layer that is amortized over a new 15 years. The 1.4 million would continue to be recognized.
So that number is moving along, changing from year to year. And would that happen every year under a layered model?
Yes.
Every
Yes,
year
yeah.
you'd layer in the newest amount.
Yes, and it could be a negative amount. So actually in that example I just gave where we expected 1.4 and we got 1.2, that would be a negative because things were better than we expected.
Gary?
Can we make this decision at any time?
I mean, sure, you could, for example, not make it this year and leave it at 14 years this year and then make the change next year. Or if you mean you still want to do it for this valuation, but you just want to have some more time to think about it, you know, that's up to the board for when you need to have the final report issued.
Before I call on Katina again, Mary?
Yeah, thank you for the informative report. I don't recall seeing anything with this much detail in other years. And I was curious when I saw it listed on the agenda. I am sometimes reluctant to get information and vote on the same night. I'm also wondering if this is something our own benefits HR finance department weighs in on at all, and maybe a heads up during the finance and audit meeting. I mean, I'm not sure but it seems like a big decision. I do want to do what's most fiscally safe and beneficial to our employees. But I'm just curious why I've never seen something like this before, and do we have advice from people with more knowledge who work in the district?
Just quick response to your question, Mary. This was brought up by Raymond Dolphin at our Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and rather than have Milliman come present to that committee, because it is a full board responsibility, we thought it best for the full board to hear the presentation. But certainly, I want to reiterate that we don't have to take action tonight. We just wanted to put it on the agenda in case people did want to. We're not trying to railroad anybody through on this. And I will say, as a board member, I do remember presentations on this type of topic in the past, but it certainly isn't something we've talked about every year. Mark?
Essentially, I was going to make the same comment, Lynn, that this was brought up at the December Finance Committee meeting, but we felt at that time that it was much too in-depth just to go through a committee and then try and reverberate. They explain it to the board, so we thought it was better to have Lynn come here and explain it directly to the board. I am interested, as Mary said, I don't recall if Ray or Iris or Ray or Kimberly have a recommendation. I believe your recommendation was to go with this method, or I guess we should hear from our own in-house.
Our recommendation was to just, Millman, they serve as consultants of ours. And so they did the same presentation to Chinyan and myself. And so the services are not going to be impacted. It is going to be an increase. I don't know what happened in the past, but I'm wondering, and I don't know if, if the Board of Ed bylaws, if there was any changes. So I don't know if Yelena can kind of speak to that, because I would imagine that if there was no changes, maybe there was no cause for them to present it to the board. But again, I've only been here for 4 months, but I would imagine that, as you said, if it was a continuing of the same plan, then there would have been no need for them to come before the board. But with the new plan, with the layered and that presentation, and that's not something that, our department, we can't make that decision. We have to obviously come to you folks and, and you guys give us the direction on what you wanted to do.
To Mary's question, though, about whether or not people who deal with the benefits on the HR side, is there any opinion?
For this
Kim's
particular,
here, so I'm just wondering whether, okay,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
We can also go back, and if you guys want to meet with us instead of Yelena, like to give a summary of it, we could do that. But we in our department are not pension experts either, like we did with the the facilitation of that. But that's why Yelena and that group of consultants that service and provide consult to us, those are the experts in that regard.
Any other questions? Katina, I think you had your hand up, and then I'll go back to you, Mary.
Yeah,
Katina.
I don't recall either having had such an in-depth presentation. I assume that there were no changes before, and that this is a no recommendation to have that layer type of payment. Do we have, as a school system, any say in the investment of the money that we have within, any say within your company? That's one of my questions, on how you're investing our money, or are we excluded from that as well? That's one. And number two is, what would be not the benefit, what's the opposite word of benefit? What would be the issue or the problem if the risk, thank you for the word in English, the risk to leave it non-layered? So 2 separate questions. Thank you.
Sure. So the first question having to do with how the assets are invested, we do not manage the assets. We collect data on the value of the assets and your target asset allocation, but we don't advise you or manage the asset side of things. I'm not sure who your investment advisors are as far as deciding how they're invested. Again, I'm not sure to your governance structure if one of your subcommittees is responsible for that. So that's, I think, better answered possibly by someone at the board. But as far as the second question of what is the downside or risk, I think risk is a perfect word. That is what actuaries do, is we manage risk. So the downside to leaving this closed amortization period is over time, as it gets smaller, you are introducing the possibility of volatility into your contribution, of having that contribution go up and down more than it would otherwise from year to year. That's the risk.
Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, I do think it's very informative. The
Good.
explanation that a change was brought to you. I do think, I don't know if I went to that December Finance and Audit meeting, but perhaps some sort of introduction, even that it was going to be on the board agenda, would have, I think, been reassuring, because the sort of chain of information that came. So I feel better informed. I think the layered idea sounds very promising, and I hesitate to say low risk, but perhaps that might be one way to characterize it.
Are there any other comments or questions? We're not taking action now one way or the other. We can just, people can. Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Well, I think in the past, I think we're right. We haven't seen this level of detail about our retirement program, but I think it's similar to the medical insurance. We never saw detail there. We just got referrals from our advisors, and we made the decision based on referrals from them and our finance and HR departments. So I guess I would like to, I agree, we don't need to take a decision, make a decision today, but I'd like to see a sort of combined recommendation from our in-house departments for HR and finance to get together and give us, because it's going to affect the budget, obviously.
Mia?
So, and maybe I think I'm understanding this correctly, but maybe not. This is all above me. But it sounds like this is the layered approach is really one area that if we choose to go that way, it sounds like this is one area of the budget that we can count on staying the same and we can plan better year to year for our budget. So I don't know if that's correct, but that's what it sounds like to me. Which again, I think would be beneficial when we're looking at our budget overall, since we know there's a lot of volatility in other areas when we get monies and when we don't.
I would say it doesn't guarantee that the amount will stay level, but it is more likely that it would stay level than if you had left the closed period.
Are there any other questions for Yelena at this point? So what I'm hearing, what I'm picking up from the board is that perhaps action tonight doesn't make sense and people aren't comfortable with that, which is just fine. And Mark made a specific request to get some recommendation from HR and finance office based on this discussion this evening and any information that they have from the employee perspective too. And that once we get that information, the board can decide how we might like to move forward. And we can certainly come back to you, Elena, if we have
Sure.
more questions
Yeah.
at a future meeting when we might be taking action or preparing to take action.
Of course. Yeah. Feel free to reach out in
Does that
between
make sense
meetings
to
or
folks? This is a lot to take in. So I appreciate your presentation though. Thanks.
good. Yes, no. Hearing the comments that this is more than you're used to, but I hope you did find it helpful. And I think it's great that you're taking the time to review the pension plan and make sure that it's on the right track. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Elena Pelletier. Appreciate it from Milliman.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, now we're on to budget prep calendar, Gary. And so the gist of this tonight is that the board approved a budget preparation calendar previously. And then when we redid our calendar for board meetings and committee meetings this year, the net effect of that is that on March 4th, if we're going to have a budget workshop, it would conflict with two different committee meetings, policy and school planning and design. And so we just need to make a decision this evening about whether or not we want to keep the budget workshop on March 4th and reschedule those two committee meetings somehow, or we want to keep the committee meetings that night and have the budget workshop on a different day, say March 5th or something like that. So I'm just putting the date, an idea out there. But I want to stress with the board that we have an obligation to approve a final budget and have it ready to go by the middle of March. And by March 15th, our approved budget book must be sent to the Board of Finance under town charter. So if we move back that budget workshop on March 4th, or if we move that date, we can't move it too close to March 13th or so. Some of you may have been on the board long enough to remember once we had a meeting to approve our budget and there was a snowstorm and the meeting had to be canceled. And we had to scramble to set a special meeting and we had to do the proper notice. It was a mess. So we don't want to bump up too close to March 13th, and I'll stop talking. Katina.
I politely suggest that we cancel the committee meetings and have the budget workshop that day. Besides, March 5th is my birthday, so I don't think I wanted to have that.
Okay, Katina.
Sorry.
That's why you made that face. Brenda, did you have your hand up?
I was going to say, I agree with Katina's suggestion, and, if need be, we can always call a special meeting of one of the committees if there's urgent business to discuss.
Gary, do you have questions?
Yeah, I have two questions, actually. What time is are the committee meetings? Could we do the committee meetings like at 6 and then this?
The committee meetings are at 5:30 and 6:30.
Okay. So we could do the committee meetings earlier and then special meeting if we want to. The other thing is I have a question on the calendar itself. The December 22nd thing, it says submission of all completed budgets to the finance department. What does that mean? Is that the town finance department?
No, that would be our Windham Public Schools Finance Department.
Okay.
We moved up the date from January to December so that we could be in a better place to actually draft our budget and present it to the board.
Okay, that makes sense.
Catherine.
I have a question about the December 22nd too. So I'm just not sure like which budgets were, so I'm seeing that principals meet with the SGC to gather feedback regarding the budget January 7th through the 23rd. So which budgets are being submitted on December 22nd when there's budgets being discussed afterwards?
We meet with all of our principals and department leads and talk about what their current expenditures are, or how their budgets are doing so far this school year, and then they give us projections for what they need for the following school year. So even if budgets are being discussed as school governance councils, they wouldn't be a recommendation from a school governance council for a change in the budget for the most part. So we go by the projections of what the principals and the department directors think that we need in order to continue our services, or if we need to add any programming or services as well.
So it's all internal work that gets done by staff. There are lots of discussions and meetings that happen over a period of time. And then when we meet on February 18th at 6 p.m., we have our first budget workshop, and that's when the first draft of a budget is presented to the board for discussion and input. And then the staff can go back and do more work. The board may make recommendations, like we think you're asking for too much, asking for too little. We have questions about these things. We'd like more information. And then we come back and have another budget workshop on when we take action tonight, whether or not we're going to keep it on March 4th or change it. Sounds like we're going to keep it. But, and then at that meeting, we could potentially take action to approve a final budget that's going to be presented to the town, to the Board of Finance. And that has to be in their hands by March 15th. Or we could decide on March 4th, we still need some more massaging and we'd have to have a special meeting or something to approve that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I want to highlight that March 15th is, I believe, a Sunday. That's why the March 13th date is on our budget preparation calendar.
Right, we don't expect everybody to be working on Saturday and Sunday to get the budget in. Any other questions or discussion? So it sounds like we might be taking action to keep it on the 4th tonight, or confirm that we want to keep it on the 4th, and that the committees can decide whether they want to have a special meeting on it at another date or time. Okay. Thank you. Seeing no more hands, we'll keep moving along. And now we're on to discussion about the 2026-27 school calendar, which we're hoping to take action on tonight. Dr. Gamera, I'm going to hand it over to you and/or Neil. I don't know who's talking about this.
Mr. Weathers is going to share the information he presented at our last board meeting.
Good evening again. We have two calendars for your consideration. We talked about last time, the version A calendar, what that proposes to do, it's a slight difference in this calendar year that we moved away from having 5 early release days to 3. One of the reasons we noticed it, we still need time for professional development in case there's initiatives we need to cover. But we noticed during the early dismissal days, our attendance, there was a rapid drop. So we thought this was a good compromise to reduce it to 3. And then version B, we just kept the 5 days. And similar to what we did this past year, January 4th and 5th for Three Kings Day, we have those as days off in the calendar. We think that's a student-centered response to what we've seen in attendance when we try to have school with 1 or 2 days before that date. And that's all I really have, unless you have any questions. Yes, Dr. Galucci.
Yeah, I did think this January, seeing that the Christmas holidays were nice and long for people, but then coming back and then immediately having early dismissals and then having a day off for MLK, and then the high schools had got early. It seems very disjointed, I have to say. It's like over November, December, January, and I do recall this as a parent being like it was really hard to get schedules. They're either when they're off for the holiday, I mean, usually the parents are too, but then there's all these early dismissal days, and it's kind of a nightmare. And I don't know how to answer the question of professional development, but I think that, at one point we had 10% of the school calendar, 18 days were early dismissals. And if I look also at the high school exam days, I have heard a lot, and I know the teachers have argued and promoted a lot of good arguments about why those should be early dismissal days. But I do wonder if there couldn't be something for the students to do while they're here, like study halls and, so they're hardly in school. What I'm saying is over several weeks. And again, I also think a routine is very important. Like, so you go to school every day and you come home at the same time. I just want to say I have rethought some of this, just seeing students around and also knowing that, especially for high school age students, early dismissal days sometimes have another nickname, which I won't say here publicly, but they are not necessarily a day that gets a, intense amount of study or something.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to say, thank you for your comments. Just so everyone knows, we did, in proposing these recommendations, we get feedback from our bargaining units before we propose these versions. And these are just recommendations to the board. Ultimately, the board can modify if they see fit these schedules. But these are the 2 recommendations, but I will take your feedback for future versions. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Gary?
I just got to ask you, because I saw it before too. Three Kings Day is a holiday or?
It is celebrated in the community, so districts such as ours that have many students that celebrate it, we don't have school that day. It's not a state holiday, but we've recognized it. I've been here for 10 years and it's been recognized at least before that. I don't know how long it's been recognized. So we don't have school. Actually, when I first got here, they used it as a PD day, but then staff was like, well, some of our staff were like, we celebrate. So we've just kept the day off and also to, again, our student and staff attendance is not great because they're celebrating that day. So to me, it's a culturally responsive no-brainer.
Any other, Catherine and then Katina.
One question, one comment. What is on the 23rd of September? I don't see it.
I think in the notes, good pickup. I think that's supposed to say, that's the date that says 8/23 and early dismissals. I think that should be marked as 9/24. We will correct that. That's the 9/23 is the first early dismissal day. That's the professional development we're talking about. I will change it on the written side. I caught that earlier. Thank you.
And just a comment, the little details sometimes speak a lot to our values. And I appreciate that Juneteenth is being recognized on June 18th. I appreciate that the second Monday of October is Indigenous Peoples' Day. And I just think it speaks volumes of our values here.
I appreciate that acknowledgement, and that speaks to the staff here that have recognized that and made those recommendations in the past. Thank you.
Katina.
Thank you for saying that, Catherine. And for our new members, actually, we have celebrated and had off or started later than January 6th since the late 1980s. We are one of the systems that acknowledges that the great part of our population is of Latino heritage and that we celebrate Epiphany, or what we call Three Kings Day.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to be taking action on version A or version B. Do people have?
We're not over version B yet, have we?
Well,
Yes.
version B is the same as version A, except it
Except
keeps all 5 early dismissal days. It is our recommendation for version A, just so everybody knows, but
Right.
it is up to you what you decide to do.
That's the difference.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then I will move us on to action items. And the first item is acceptance of a donation for the Lock-In for Literacy event that we have annually in our school, in our high school. And I would entertain a motion to accept a $3,000 donation from the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut. So moved.
With gratitude?
Motion made by Katina, seconded by Mark with gratitude. Is there any discussion? Catherine?
I just want to disclose that my son is involved in the Lock-In for Literacy. So just want to disclose that when I'm voting.
Thank you for bringing that up. And that's great that your son is involved in the Lock-In for Literacy. Must be very proud of him. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried unanimously. Okay, I would entertain a motion for approval of the 2026-27 school calendar. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve A or B?
I move we approve version A of the proposed 2026-27 school calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made by Brendan, seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Unanimously, thank you. Since we're not revising the budget calendar, we're just keeping it as is and having the budget workshop on the 4th. I don't really think we need to have a motion to take action on that. We just need to acknowledge that 2 committees will be canceled that evening, and the committee chairs can decide whether or not they want to. Do you think we need to vote on it?
Where we did make some minor changes to the other dates that are highlighted in
Okay.
green. They're minor, but yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, so you're talking about,
We moved the January date to December for all of the budgets to be discussed with the finance department.
yeah,
And we also discussed the budget at our last finance and audit
Right.
committee meeting.
Okay, so I move that we approved the budget preparation calendar presented tonight for the 26-27 school year, and that we reschedule or cancel the committee meetings for March 4th.
motion made by Katina. Do I get a
Second.
second? Seconded by Brendan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Unanimous, thank you. Then we have a bunch of a bunch of policies to repeal and replace as recommended by the policy committee. And I would entertain a motion to one motion to repeal and replace item D 1 and 2.
Actually, Lynn, I'm going to make a slight
To
amendment here.
separate them?
Yeah, we'll leave them separate, and on D1, I'll actually make a motion to repeal policy 4115.3. There was a typo in the agenda.
Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you for catching that. Neil sent us an email about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion to repeal policy 4115.3 and
Okay.
replace with the model.
Is
policy.
there a motion? Is there a second to Brendan's motion?
Second.
So does everybody understand the number on the agenda? It was listed wrong. Neil had sent an email saying that we should make that correction tonight. Thank you, Brendan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay. Now, I'll entertain a motion to approve, repeal and replace policy 3280.
So moved.
Motion made by Katina. Seconded by Gary. Any discussion? Yes, Mary?
Yes, I'm going to vote no on this because of the precedent that the board set by ignoring its previous gift policy, by not including any students despite saying that they're all our children. There were no voices, there was no input from the school. And I do think that there was another policy of Shipman and Goodman in a different district that includes some very crucial language about the importance of the gifts to students and that they belong to all the students.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please, of the motion that's on the floor, please indicate by raising your hand. Opposed? One opposition, abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. Now I'll entertain a motion to repeal policy 6163.11.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Brendan, seconded by Katina. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by raising your hands, please. Opposed? Abstentions? Just one in opposition. Thank you. We're not taking action on the pension plan. I would entertain a motion on budget transfers. Mark, how do you want to make the motion?
I would make the motion that we approve budget transfers for 12/17 of the date of 12/17 for $573,604, and the budget transfer from date 1/14 for $16,232, for a total transfer approval $589,836.
I think it's 573, 604 and 6 cents to be exact. That's what I'm reading on my sheet.
Yeah, I don't see it. There's no other 6 cents in there.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. Good point. Is that a typo, Ray? Is it? Okay.
Actually, it's under transaction 31. And then you go down the line at
Yep, I see it.
other professional tech services, other professional services, and there's your 6 cents.
Oh, yeah.
Nice job, Ray. It's on page 35, yeah.
Okay. So do we feel okay with it being 06? 6 cents? Mark, would you like amend your,
yes, I-
you'll accept that amendment? Okay. The motion was made by Mark. Did anybody second it? Seconded by Katina. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, we'll be looking for donations for those pennies since they're no longer in circulation.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. And now we're on to public comment. Is there anybody who wants to speak during public comment? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:01.
I move, we move.